Yes, guys, welcome to the Fantasy Football Fix Double Game Week 34 live stream. My name is FPL Nacho, and I do apologise for the slight delay and getting involved in this. It's always technical difficulties, but we are here. And of course, this is the biggest double game week left of the season, and for some managers out there, the best opportunity to climb those mini leagues, climb those overall ranks, and really capitalise on those players that are going to be playing the maximum minutes in this double game week. So first and foremost, if you are new around here, please do consider hitting that subscribe button and, of course, dropping a like on this live stream. We always try and hit 50 likes. If you can do that, it will be massively appreciated. It is free to do, and it just shows me that you are enjoying the stream. And if you're not enjoying it, then, of course, don't hit that like button. I can see some regulars already in the chat. Cheekster, as always, hope you're doing very well. John in the chat, Kinga, Tom, of course, Paul Gibbons. I can see plenty in there, so please do pipe up in the comments, in the chat. Let me know your questions ahead of double game week 34, where you're tuning in from in the world. Is always interesting to know. I can see we have plenty of comments already in the chat, which is awesome. As always, I'll be answering them throughout the live stream. You don't have to wait until the end. I will be answering them throughout as we go, so please do drop them in. Don't hesitate to get them in the chat. No question is a bad question. Unless you're asking about Chelsea assets, then you know the answer to that one there. So we, of course, are going to be covering off a lot of different hot topics, which is going to include my plans for game week 34. We're going to be talking about a free hit draft that I think is probably one of the best you could go for ahead of game week 34. We're going to talk about wildcard drafts, predicted points, and, of course, captaincy. Can we go against Erling Haaland, or is he just the obvious pick? We're going to get a poll up in the chat in a bit just to obviously see what everybody is kind of thinking, what direction to go for in their captaincy. So let's quickly deep dive into some of the early questions in the chat. Then we're going to move on to my team and my plans for double game week 34, as I currently own no Liverpool players. So it's going to be very interesting to see if anyone is in a similar situation and maybe what your plans are for your respective team. So John's already asked, hi Nacho, have a wildcard active currently with De Gea, Pope, Shaw, Trippier, Trent, Diaz, Stupinan, March, Matoma, Salah, Rashford, Grealish, Haaland, Isak, Watkins have 0.9 in the bank. Any advice? And above gives 26 potential doubles. So yeah, John, I really do like it. The one thing I would say is your squad's almost a bit too stacked. And the way that I say that is you're going to go for a 5-man midfield the way that you've deployed it there. What week do you bench any of those midfielders? And the reason why I say that is because you've gone for a 3-man front line, which is really strong with Watkins, Isak and Haaland. I would question maybe, could you downgrade someone like a Watkins? Maybe his time is up with the fixtures turning for the worse. Bring it down to someone like a Greenwood, which could then enable you to upgrade other departments in your team if you feel like you're lacking in certain areas. Now, it's worth noting, your team looks solid as it is. So if you can have that team, happy days. But what I would say is you might have some benching headaches along the way. So that's the only question mark. Otherwise, team looks absolutely spot on. If you're not bench boosting, though, I would argue maybe you're too strong in the goalkeeper department with both De Gea and Pope. I don't think you need both of those in your team necessarily. King, I hope you're doing well, buddy. Paul, even Nacho, I'm stuck with 2 free transfers. Who are the must-haves for double game week 34 and onwards? Looking to sell Kane and Saka. Now, to remind you guys of the double game weeks in 34, the one that we're currently looking at. Liverpool double at home against Tottenham and Fulham. Man City double away against Fulham and at home against West Ham. Brighton double with 2 home fixtures at home against Wolves and at home against Man United. Man United double at home against Villa, away against Brighton. Fulham double, disgusting double at home against Man City and away against Liverpool. And West Ham double with 2 away fixtures against Crystal Palace and Man City. So on the face of it, with game week 34 alone, Liverpool look essential for at least a double up. I think Salah and Trent is the route to go for, and Man City as well. Now, Brighton, with their double game week, look good, even though one of those is Man United. But we need to remember there are other double game weeks later in the season. Double game week 36 is a double for both Newcastle and Brighton. And game week 37 is a double for Brighton, Man United, City and Chelsea. So we knew City was the best team in the league. With doubles in 34 and 37, it just makes their assets even more essential. I think there's some question marks about the players and the minutes that we could see with them, but I do think if we can get at least a double up in Man City assets, that would be the route to go for if you have the funds available. And Brighton, with their cheap enablers all around the 5 million bracket in the midfield, it just seems like a no-brainer to go for the double up in their midfield, unless you're starting to feel that maybe their season is going to tail off after the anticlimax of the semi-final in the FA Cup. Potentially that is a route that people are thinking as well, could be swinging against the Brighton midfielders. But again, let me know your thoughts in the comments. And I could also see, is it Sokhan, I believe, saying good evening, hope you're doing very well. Paul saying, maybe tempted with a -4 to bring in the right player for either Trippier or another for Watkins. I wouldn't be looking to sell Trippier if you are discussing about selling him. He doubles in game week 36 and has good fixtures either side. With his ownership, I think sometimes we can go against players at particular times. It doesn't feel like the right time right now to go against Trippier. That's my personal opinion right now. I think there's going to be game weeks where he is going to be really important from both a points perspective and an ownership perspective. So without further ado, guys, let's get into my game week 34 team plans. I'll discuss exactly what direction I'm going in, give you a quick review on how I got on in game week 33, and hopefully it will help you with some plans if you're in a similar boat to my team. So let's get started with that one there. Okay, so here on your screens, you can see how my team is currently looking for game week 34 with my intended transfers. But before we get onto that, let me just give you a quick update on how I'm getting on so far in FPL, because I think a lot of the time when I do the live streams, I talk about my team plans for the game week that we are in. I don't really review my game weeks, and I don't really tell you where I'm ranked in the world. So I'm just going to quickly cover that off for maybe those that are interested. If you're not interested, then that's fair enough. I think there's probably understanding there. So my game week 33 was one of my better game weeks. I had 78 points. I was a Kane owner. I had the captaincy on Haaland. I had that differential with Raya in goal, which was really big. And we also had the double up of Man United with Rashford and Fernandes. And I rolled my transfers, worth noting. So I had a really good game week with 78 points. Again, let me know how many you got in game week 33. I'd be really interested to know if anybody beat 78 points in game week 33. But I was more than delighted with that game week. And my season's been kind of split into two, pre-World Cup and post-World Cup. Pre-World Cup, I was struggling so bad to get any sort of traction in FPL. It felt like every move I was making was a negative move, and I really couldn't keep up with the pack. I was missing the players that were going big, not making the right captaincy decisions. And in particular, the Haaland versus Salah captaincy debate really early on in the season absolutely wiped out my rank by about 200k, and I've been struggling ever since. However, I'm going to say post game week 26 wildcard, the weeks have started to look more in my favour. So just to give you a bit of perspective, just for those that are interested, game week 26, I was at 367,000 in the world. And since then, I am now 56k. So I've had a really nice flurry of green arrows. The only red in between then and game week 26 was in game week 28, where I actually doubled my rank. So I went from, I had a really bad game week, and then I've clawed it back, thankfully, to 56k. So I'm really happy where I'm at right now. If I could get top 50k, I would be delighted with it. I know there's a lot of chips being activated with the free hits and wildcards in game week 34. But I really think we're in a position right now where we can start to make some differential punts along the way if you want to make that move. It's worth noting, this kind of progression that I've had over the last few game weeks, haven't been taking any punts whatsoever. It's just been a little bit of luck, of course, the right captaincy choices, and just the right starting 11 at the right time. That is simply it. I haven't been making any audacious claims with random players. Otherwise, the rank could have even been better or a lot worse. So here is how my team is looking at my intended transfers. So I'm going to reel off what my intended transfers are, just give you a bit of an understanding on the situation. So this will be a -4. I have 0.9 million in the bank and 2 free transfers. And my plan is to sell Ben Chilwell. He has been awful in this Chelsea team alongside every single other Chelsea player. So my plan is to sell Ben Chilwell to Trent Alexander-Arnold. Now, of course, I don't have the money in the bank to enable that move. So the plan is to sell Harry Kane, downgrade him all the way to Greenwood at 4 million as a forward and basically just have him as a dead end forward, third spot on my bench. I don't have to worry about a bench and headache in that forward line. Then, with the cash in the bank, it will then enable me to upgrade Martin Odegaard at Arsenal all the way up to Mo Salah at Liverpool to target that double game week, which we have to remember is both at home at Anfield, where we know Mo Salah steps up to the plate in those fixtures. So that will leave me 0.3 million in the bank and a -4 point hit. And that feels like the right move for my team right now. I've been flirting with another few plans, potentially keeping Harry Kane, but then it means I really can't get myself over to those Liverpool assets. And although I'm quite bullish on Harry Kane and Tottenham between now and the end of the season, I really do think his ownership is going to come all the way down, that he's going to become an amazing differential. And I really think if you want to go different, he is the man to hold. But I'm a sucker for double game weeks, and I really think going into those doubles is the right move for my team. So that's the team that I want to get to with a -4. The problems: only one Man City coverage. I don't feel compelled to bring in any Man City midfielder. I don't view any of them as guaranteed minutes over the next 3 game weeks. And it's all about expected minutes when we're discussing double game weeks. De Bruyne, yes, he's been in great form, but can I trust his minutes with the with the Champions League not too far away? I think there is a temptation there that he could get benched in one of those. Grealish isn't obvious, but when I look at my midfield that I'm getting to here, which one of these players do I sell to enable the move to Grealish or even a Mahrez? And I don't see it as a viable move. In terms of the defenders, it would be Ederson or no one for me. But in order for me to enable the Ederson move, I would have to do one or two things. Take a -12 point hit, downgrade another player in my team, maybe a Watkins down to Isak, and then upgrade Raya to Ederson. Or I downgrade the move to Trent to Robertson, and then I look to upgrade Raya to Ederson. And that will be, of course, a -8 hit, which I do think will pay itself off over the course of the season, but it's whether Robertson can match Trent over that period. Because once I go Robertson, that's it. I'm not going to Trent between now and the end of the season. And if there was one Liverpool player and defender that I did want to own, it was going to be Trent. Looking at the positions that he's taken up, look at the fixtures coming up. I think he's the one that if there is going to be some double-digit returns between now and the end of the season, it is going to be him. So that's my intended plan. It's going to give me benching headaches later down the line, but that is how it is right now, unfortunately, in FPL. And captaincy is going to be on Erling Haaland, unless we get an interview from Pep Guardiola where he says that he is not going to be playing him. If that's the case, then we move it to Mo Salah. But I really do feel like Mo Salah in isolation is a good enough differential in itself. I don't think I need to go against Erling Haaland. I've done it at points in the season, and it's absolutely decimated my rank. And I really don't want to be doing that right now, sat at 56k in the world. So let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys. We'll be answering a few questions now, coming back to my team, and then we'll be moving on to the ideal Game Week 34 wildcard team, where I really appreciate some input from you guys as well about which direction you would go for if you were to wildcard in Game Week 34. And again, if you can, drop a like on the live stream is always appreciated. We're at 17 right now. If we can get to 50 between now and the end of the live stream, that'd be massively appreciated as always. So let's get started with some more questions, and then we will come back to my team and a few other avenues that I've been considering. And of course, if you have any thoughts about it, drop it in the comments and I'll be looking through them as we go. Hopefully someone can give me the ultimate move for me to get Man City's offensive coverage, Liverpool players, and just general goodness in this team. So let's take a look and see what the questions are in here. Sam Gardner says, start Watkins, Botman, Trippier or Solanke. I think for me, because none of those double, the answer would be Trippier of that lot. I think that's the one that could hurt you the most from an ownership perspective. And I think he's the one that has the highest ceiling of the lot. So Trippier for me on that one. Thoughts on Jota, Shaz is saying. So Jota is definitely one that I've been considering as a potential transfer for my team. Maybe even an enabler against Mo Salah if I couldn't get myself to him. And I wanted to maybe go down the Kevin De Bruyne route. Now, he is currently flagged right now in FPL, but it's worth noting the press conference I don't think was as bad as a lot of people are making out. I would expect him to have some decent game time in this double game week. It sounds like he is available. They are just managing a slight back injury. So I don't have any worries about Jota's minutes. I'd predict maybe 120 minutes played in the double game week, which I think is more than enough to see positive returns in this double. The one thing I will question is the rotation from a substitution perspective. Jota could be fit as a fiddle, but with the likes of Luis Diaz and Darwin Núñez returning to the team, I do think there is that natural temptation for Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp, to think to himself, if the game is sewed up or looking like it's not going in the right direction, he knows he has the luxury in the team and the squad now to shake things up and make certain substitutions when necessary. So I do think Diogo Jota is a fantastic option, but I think you do need to own him with a caveat that there could be rotation at any point, because we need to remember, Liverpool, one of those rare squads where the drop-off from the starter to the sub is literally nothing. Jota, Darwin Núñez, Luis Diaz, these guys are all on a very level playing field. So I don't think Klopp is going to look at these and think, oh God, I have to take Jota off and the level is going to completely fall. I don't see that at all. I think they are very much equal playing fields. And Jota right now is just the man that is hot as we speak. That could change. We need to see it. But I like the move if you want to take that risk on this double game week. But I think it's now or never for Jota just to capitalise on the double that Liverpool do have. And Aaron saying, if I were to sell Watkins for this game week, which player would be a better choice to replace him? Isak or Wilson? I'm in the impression that Isak is the route to go for. But I will say exactly the same as Jota. There is definitely going to be rotation from time to time. I really do think Newcastle are one of those rare teams where the substitute forward is nearly on par with the starting forward. We could say Man City have an amazing backup striker in the likes of Alvarez. Chelsea have no forward. Man United's is Martial and Weghorst. Tottenham's is Kane and nobody. With Newcastle right now, Isak and Wilson is probably one of the best forward combinations in the league in terms of a starter and a backup forward. So I don't think Eddie Howe has any worries about bringing Callum Wilson into the team at any time. We saw what he done with that brace against Everton. It really did feel like Callum Wilson was almost saying, you know, I'm still here. I'm still good. Don't be forgetting about me, even though Isak just has that added spice that I don't think Callum Wilson has about him. He's much more of a goal scorer. Isak's much more of a just general baller. He can score goals. He can create goals out of nothing. We saw that through the assists. So I'm going to answer it with Isak will be the one that I would go for, but I absolutely think that there is going to be rotation for Isak and Wilson down the line. Now, we need to remind ourselves with the Newcastle fixtures, an amazing home game against Southampton. And naturally, because Wilson started against Everton, I would anticipate Isak to start against Southampton. They then have Arsenal in game week 35 at home, which is really big now by the looks of it. Then a double in 36, Leicester at home in 37, and probably the easiest fixture left, Chelsea away in game week 38. So if you can get yourself a Newcastle forward, I think Isak is the one that I would target, but please do understand that I do predict at least one more benching for Isak between now and the end of the season. It's whether he can make up that lack of game time in that week with his returns in the week that he starts. That's the only thing I would say there. There is no worries about Callum Wilson started in Eddie Howe's mind at all. I really do think he does see him as a fantastic alternative to Isak, but Isak is number one. It is worth emphasising there. And Shaz is saying, hold or sell Mahrez. I think if you're in a position right now where we go into a double game week where Mahrez didn't play the previous week, I think Mahrez is the one to hold this week. I know the minutes are a little bit questionable and we definitely could see rotation, but with the fixtures that Man City have this week, Fulham away and West Ham at home, if you can get Mahrez for 120 minutes over that period, I really do think that he could be one of those amazing differentials this week. So for me, I think if you own him, you definitely keep him, but you won't be buying him if you're in the market for a Man City midfielder, just because the minutes are so hard to predict. But I think he's an amazing hold if you were investing in him already. And Popey's saying, currently on free hit, current draft, Edison TAA. I'm assuming, Popey, there's more to that section there, but it's just cut off there, so I won't be able to answer that question right now as we speak. And Nutsy's saying, any news on Jota and Ake? Sounds like Ake is still going to be out. Jota sounds way more promising, and I would anticipate him to at least play 90 minutes over this double game week. It's whether he gets that 120 minutes plus over that period. And AR saying, Kepa and Henry out for Edison and Shaw or De Gea and Stones. I think based on guaranteed game time, I would probably rather you go for Edison and Shaw. But the one thing I would say is, I think De Gea is a better goalkeeper choice from a general points avenue. I think Edison either gets 6 points or 2 points. I think De Gea is probably in a position where he's going to rack up save points, therefore bonus points could accumulate. So I think De Gea probably outscores Ederson, but I really don't know whether Stones plays every minute for Man City, whereas I anticipate the combination of Ederson and Shaw to get guaranteed minutes between now and the end of the season. Therefore, I probably would go down that route. But the way that Shaw is playing right now at centre-back and Martinez and Varane likely to be out for the rest of the season, I would argue that Lindelof is also a consideration at $1 million less. You could look at that avenue if you want to free up some funds in your team. I don't expect much rotation with Lindelof. I think he's been okay for Man United, and I don't think necessarily Ten Hag has much trust in Maguire to come back into that starting 11. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Lindelof and Shaw at centre-back between now and the end of the season, as long as Martinez and Varane are ruled out for the rest of that period. It is worth noting. So as I said, guys, that is my intended team that you can see on your screens there. A -4, Chilwell, Odegaard, Kane, out for Trent, Salah, and Greenwood. As I mentioned, I don't have any Man City defensive coverage. I really hope if I don't go down that route, they can see some late goals. I do apologise if you are a Man City owner in the defence, but I really hope they keep just getting those late goals conceded where they're 3-0 up and they just don't pay attention for 5-10 minutes. So that's where I'm at right now. But of course, if you want to stay up to date with my exact moves, make sure you head over to Twitter and follow me on FPL Nacho. That's where I'll definitely update you if you are interested in my personal team. You can also check out on TikTok, but I appreciate that's not for everybody over on there. So before we get on to the next section, guys, I want to quickly get in the chat, as this is always a good opportunity to get an idea on what direction people are going in. We're just going to be dropping in a quick poll to see who everybody is captaining in game week 34, as I really think this is a good opportunity to understand if Mo Salah is actually on the radar for people, or whether Haaland, being the robot that he is just impossible to look past. So that is coming on right now on your screens. You'll see that in 30 seconds. I am just putting up some other alternatives that maybe some managers are considering out there, and I've put another option as other. And if you could just answer, if you are going other in the chat, let me know which that other alternative for captaincy is. Be really interested to know if you're going for a really big differential. But I've just put that on the chat there, guys. Make sure you do vote on it. Let me know who your game week 34 captain is. Haaland, Salah, Rashford, or other of the options. Let me know. I will be shocked if Haaland isn't the majority winner, but I would be very interested to see if some managers are maybe going down the Mo Salah route, because of course an additional point for a goal, an additional point for a clean sheet, and of course a bit of a differential this week, it is worth noting, with some really favourable fixtures. Okay, so while you guys are voting in that, let's move on to what I would wildcard into if I was in game week 34. And again, let me know in the chat if you are activating your wildcard in this game week or not. I'm very jealous if you are. I would love to have it available to me, but I did use it in game week 26. So I think that was probably the split that a lot of managers had, at either game week 26 or maybe holding it till later in the season. This feels like the time to do it if you are considering doing it. So let's get up on your screens now so you can see the game week 34 wildcard draft. So this is how it is looking right now, but it's worth noting there are a few tweaks that can be made to send the team off in different directions. So let me cover off a few players that I feel are all but essential if you are planning on wildcarding in game week 34, and then we can kind of cover off maybe some talking points where I think you could go a little bit different depending on your rank or maybe your interpretation of the team. So first up, Ederson in goal. I'm not going to say he's essential, because end of the day, Man City have not been keeping clean sheets, and we know Ederson's ceiling is so low because he just doesn't accumulate the save points. Therefore, the bonus points don't get accumulated because they get swallowed up by either the defender that scores or Haaland or Kevin De Bruyne. So Ederson I really like, mainly because of the guaranteed minutes in that Man City defence, and we need to remind ourselves that they double in game week 34 and double in game week 37, and in between those fixtures they play the likes of Leeds at home, Everton away. So if there ever is a time for them to keep clean sheets, I really do think that we're coming into that crunch time now where maybe Pep Guardiola just gets them really focused on, now they've beat Arsenal, they can smell the title, and they might tighten up a little bit and not switch off in those last 10-15 minutes. And I think Ederson is the route to go for if you are looking at a guaranteed minutes pick. Iverson is the backup, currently starting for Leicester. I want to go cheapest chips in the goalkeeper department because we know that Ederson is going to be playing week in, week out for Man City. Now, looking at the defence, you can see we haven't got a Man City defender. So what I would say is, if you are really against the Ederson goalkeeper pick, because I understand there are some people, he is like Marmite, you either really like him and appreciate him, or you think he is the worst value goalkeeper in the game, then I do think a defender is a consideration. I'll say the ceiling's a little bit higher with those, but I think there's only a few that we can consider. I think Diaz is in the equation. The injury to Ake means that he's ruled out right now if you're a wildcard in a game week 34. Stones is definitely a consideration, of course. Laporte I'm going to rule out because I don't think his game time is guaranteed, similar to Kyle Walker. And I think a Akanji comes into the mix as well. So I think the toss-up is Diaz, who is the most expensive, Stones, who is the mid-price, and a Akanji, who is the cheaper of the three. And I really don't think necessarily that you are going to be investing in any of those three that have higher goal scoring potential. I don't look at any of those and think to myself, he is more likely to score than the other. I don't think Stones, even though he has been scoring that worldy left foot, is going to be doing that week in, week out. So I don't think necessarily if you think Stones is the man because he scored recently is a good enough argument to justify just going for Stones. I think it's all about minutes. And to be honest with you, I think if I was picking one for minutes, it would be Diaz. I don't think many are going to be playing in that centre of a three the way that they do when they attack. And I think Diaz is the man for that position. So if you can afford it, I really like the Diaz move. However, I understand some people's budget is tight. And I would always be inclined to go for a Akanji if you did have the understanding that the minutes are always at risk for the defensive line. So Akanji would be my pick, but I really need to say I'm not guaranteed about the minutes. It's just more of a case of he's the cheapest of the lot, and I think his minutes are as good as John Stones if you cannot afford Diaz as your option. Now, the ones that I've picked in the defence, I do think Trent is essential if you can afford it. Yes, you can go Robertson. Yes, you can go Van Dijk. But if you can afford it, and you will be able to because you're wildcarding, I think Trent just comes into your team. Trippier as well. I think some people are maybe looking away from Trippier, but look, Southampton at home in game week 34, Arsenal in 35, a double in 36, Leicester at home in 37. I just think Trippier is a fantastic pick, and I've doubled up in the defence with Fabian Schär. Of course, Fabian Schär, one of the most attacking centre-backs on the planet, it seems. And I really do think he's a fantastic option alongside Trippier. Now, he's not essential. You can go to Botman at a cheaper alternative if you can't afford him. But I think if you have the luxury to get to Schär, he will be my preference over Botman in that Newcastle defence. And importantly, we're bringing these in early because we can capitalise on that double in game week 36. Luke Shaw is in there to capitalise on double in 34 and in 37. However, the injuries to Martinez and Lindelof mean that he's playing at centre-back, and I would not mind anybody if they wanted to downgrade Luke Shaw all the way to Lindelof, as I think his game time is as good as Luke Shaw's, and I don't think either offer much attacking potential in their centre-back roles. So I think you can easily go to Lindelof and be more than comfortable with it. I think Dalot is a pick, but of course we could see slight rotation there if Malacia gets played at left back and Wan-Bissaka at right back from time to time. So I think, although I like Dalot from an attacking potential and bonus perspective, I probably would just go Lindelof for guaranteed minutes between now and the end of the season if you can't afford Luke Shaw. And Estupiñán as well. Very frustrating. I've been an owner. I am not as bullish on him as others, but Brighton have 3 doubles. Incredibly hard to look past him, and hopefully we do get some attacking returns eventually from him, so he makes it into the team just because of his sheer value at 4.6 million. Very hard to overlook him right now when we have other premiums that we need to afford in the team. Now the midfield, I think Salah is essential. I understand managers want to go to Kevin De Bruyne because of the recent returns that he's had against Arsenal in previous game weeks. But looking at the fixtures coming up and the schedule for City, I do anticipate at least one benching for Kevin De Bruyne. Whereas with Mo Salah, I don't necessarily think that is going to happen. And because of that very reason, because of expected minutes, I just fancy Mo Salah over Kevin De Bruyne. Importantly, because Liverpool have multiple home games. And we know Mo Salah in those home games is a different beast away from home. So because of that reason, I'm going for Mo Salah over Kevin De Bruyne. I just think long term it will pay dividends. But that does mean I've gone for Jack Grealish in the Man City midfield. Now, this is a man that's played a lot of minutes. And again, I would not be surprised if he gets rotated. But I feel like you need another piece of the pie in that Man City attack with those brilliant double game week fixtures. And Grealish feels like the great enabler if you don't want to take the risk on Mahrez. Mahrez is a really nice 1 week punt, but we need to remember a wildcard draft is long term. And I think Grealish is the safer pick of the two. I don't see him coming out of this Man City team at any point apart from fatigue and rest ahead of the Champions League fixture against Real Madrid. So Grealish is in, but I want to caveat and say, if you had the money available, maybe doing Luke Shaw down to Lindelof, you could upgrade Jack Grealish to Bruno Fernandes and get yourself that third Man United pick. It's going to come down to how you interpret Man United right now and Fernandes. The returns haven't been huge from Fernandes, but we saw him in that position against Spurs, playing further up with the likes of Casemiro and Eriksen behind him. I think he's a fantastic option if you can afford him in your midfield. I wouldn't be against anybody going for Fernandes over Jack Grealish. Rashford is a lock, and we have Matoma and March just to really capitalise on those Brighton doubles. And the front line, Haaland, I think we could give or take Haaland. No, of course not. Haaland is locked, absolutely locked. Just keep him in for now and the rest of the season, and then in next season and the next season. He's non-negotiable. Isak is the other forward. Now, Greenwood is just going to be a third forward that sits on the third spot on the bench, just to avoid you having headaches week in, week out, because we need to focus on money on the areas that are important. And I think Isak ticks all the boxes. You could easily start him this week if it wasn't for the double game weeks of the players this week, with that great home fixture against Southampton, but then you have him for that double in 36, and even the likes of 37 at home against Leicester. So I think Isak is the time to bring him in for your teams. And this leaves about 1 million in the bank. And I do think when you're wildcarded, having that little bit of cash in the bank just gives you that little bit of flexibility to be reactive with the game weeks in hand that we have. Because once you go for a team like this, I don't see you moving away from any of these players particularly. For example, if you go Trent, I don't see you selling him at any point. The same applies for Salah. The same applies for the Brighton midfielders. The same applies for Rashford, Haaland, Isak. So there's only a few players in this team that you look at and think, you know what, I could sacrifice him at some point. So you're only going to have one or two players. And with that cash in the bank, it just means that you could, if you wanted to, flip Grealish to maybe a Saka in game week 36 really easily. And I really like having that flexibility in a wildcard team rather than being completely rigid in the team you were selected. So I've rambled on, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the chat. It'd be super interesting. I'm going to come back to the chat and answer some more questions. And I'm going to quickly review the poll of captaincy. We've had 57 votes. Haaland is 81% of you guys for captain, 12% on Mo Salah, 7% on Rashford. Kind of what I expected. I was expecting Salah to probably have about 10% of the votes, and I've seen in the FPL community on Twitter, it's very similar as well. So if you're going Mo Salah, two things. One, an amazing differential, but two, you need to remember that if he misses, you could get really hurt from your rank if Haaland does deliver and continue the form that he's in across the course of this season. Right, let's get back into some of the questions, guys, and then we will move on to a free hit team for Game Week 34 if you are on it. And let me know in the chat if you are on your free hit in Game Week 34. And again, if you can drop a like on the stream, it is always appreciated. So, Gaurav, I believe you're saying Game Week 38 is being overlooked. How are we getting Arsenal assets back? Hardly any money left to upgrade from the Brighton mid. So yeah, that's a really good point there. And exactly what I mentioned about if you are wildcarding, leaving that little bit of cash in the bank just really gives you that opportunity to upgrade your players into different directions. So I absolutely agree. I actually think Game Week 37 will be the time to target Arsenal if you want to go back there. Game Week 37, Nottingham Forest away. Game Week 38, they have Wolves at home. I really think having at least one Arsenal asset is going to be essential around that period. But again, who do you sell for that Arsenal player? You're not going to be selling a Man City player because they double in that week. You're not going to be selling a Man United player because they double. You're not going to be selling a Brighton player because they double. So could maybe the second forward spot be the route to go for? Maybe you have an Isak who has been held for that double in 36, and then you do a sideways move from Isak to Gabriel Jesus if you have the money available. Definitely something to consider. And I also do think that maybe we could get to a time of that season where injuries happen or a team really drops off. Let's say Brighton drop off completely and we see a different team. Maybe using the likes of Matoma or March up into a Martinelli could be an option. So I think definitely have a plan for Arsenal is needed, but I don't think you need to necessarily completely dictate your transfers from today onwards to focus on Arsenal. King is saying got 75 last game week, was 1.35 million up to World Cup. Up to 75k now. That's amazing, King. Great to see the comeback there. That's unbelievable. And the second chance league is great in FPL because it really does get to show who has been in the recent form since the World Cup. Lewis Cohen saying Kepa out for Edison, and which one of Zinchenko, Chilwell out for Trent for a -4? Budget not a real problem. Chilwell for me. I do not anticipate any Chelsea clean sheets. I don't see any Chelsea wins. Chilwell, get rid of him. Absolutely the route to go for. Zinchenko, he can sit there for you, and maybe he is one that's going to come in handy later on when we fall onto those great fixtures for Arsenal to finish the season. Michael, would you bench boost with these 4 or save it for another game week? Leno, Alvarez, Trippier, and Shah. So, Michael, my recommendation would be to take a look at your team in the upcoming game weeks and get an understanding, does your squad look any better in any particular game week? Now, we need to remember, Newcastle have a fantastic fixture at home. Alvarez, I would question, is a minutes risk. So you are, of course, bench boosting with a player that you don't even know is going to start. And Leno has, let me remind myself, I believe a really bad double this week, doesn't he? He has Man City and Liverpool, so we could accumulate saves. So the first thing you need to do, plan your team out for future game weeks. Does it look any better at any time? If it doesn't, I'm absolutely fine with you bench boosting at that, because you need to understand if you haven't got a wild card available, it might be very difficult for you to manipulate your team to have 15 doublers in either 34 or 37. 37 might be the other time for you to do it, potentially later down the line. So, yeah, maybe just future plan your team. Saga is saying thoughts on Martial/Alvarez. I'm not really big on Martial because I really think his minutes are still getting managed and he really can't predict his game time. Alvarez, exactly the same thing. When he's on the field, he's unbelievable. But can we predict his time on the field? That is the big thing. If you want to go rank chasing, I love the Alvarez move, but I just couldn't sit here and confidently tell you which one to go for and whether Alvarez does definitely play or not. Jota wasn't pictured in training. Okay, that's worth noting. I will keep an eye on that over online. Yacine saying, I'm thinking of KDB, Haaland, Alvarez on free hit. Is it good? I think it is fantastic move from a chasing perspective. Massive punts. Just be understanding, Alvarez is probably the one that could have limited minutes. But if Man City go off, you have got the beasts there. So I have no problems with that whatsoever. I would argue maybe if you wanted to change it a little bit, you were worried about some minutes there, you could go for a Mahrez maybe. I think he's a good upside pick as well. But if you want to go those three, I have no arguments with it whatsoever. Aaron, I think Tom's answered your question there, so that's good to see because I don't actually know the answers to that myself. John, do you think Dalot will play? Dalot is one of those where I think he absolutely is in probably Ten Hag starting 11 right now with the injuries that they have. But I would say that there could be some rotation with the busy schedule that Man United have, with the likes of Malacia playing at left back and Wan-Bissaka at right back. But if I had to predict Dalot's game time, I would say he probably starts the majority, is probably the way I view it right now. I think he offers a really good FPL option because he offers attacking potential, but importantly is really good on the bonus baseline as well, which is worth noting. And Lewis is saying, yeah, I bought both Kepa and Chilwell on my wildcard in Game Week 29. What a mistake. Don't worry, I was in the exact same boat as well, but in Game Week 26. And Shaz is saying, is TA essential? Is it worth downgrading Watkins to Isak to get Chilwell to TAA? So no, I don't think Trent is essential. It is worth noting. So let me just get up some of the underlying numbers for Trent in the last 3 game weeks. So I do believe it is worth noting that since game week, I believe 30, we have seen Trent kind of move into this inverted role. And I think the understanding is Trent is a million times better than Robertson is kind of the narrative. So just to give it a bit of perspective right now, we're going to do this based on the last 4 league games for Liverpool. Trent, Robertson and Van Dijk have all played the exact same minutes. So over the last 4 league matches, Alexander-Arnold has an XG of 0.37. Sorry, start again. Trent has had an expected goals of 0.07. Robertson 0.3 and Van Dijk 0.11. That is total. That isn't per 90 minutes. So that is total over the last 4 games. Expected assists, Trent 2.78, Robertson 1.23, Van Dijk 0.06. So Van Dijk not looking the best on expected goals, and we knew he was not going to be big on expected assists. Based on expected points, 26.7 for Trent, 20.4 for Robertson, 14.8 for Van Dijk. So Trent leading the way for expected FPL points. Now, in terms of goal threat for these big chances, Robertson is the only one that's registered a big chance with 1. In terms of shots, Van Dijk has had 4, of course, all of those being in the box from set pieces. Trent has had 3, Robertson only 1. And in terms of creativity, we have also seen over this period, Trent create 5 big chances, Robertson 3, and Van Dijk 0. So, no, I don't think Trent is absolutely essential. Liverpool, very hard to predict clean sheets, and any defender who isn't racking up clean sheets week in, week out is not essential. I don't care what anyone says, no player is essential if you cannot sit here and tell me that he's going to be racking up clean sheets week in, week out. If Liverpool become watertight, then Trent becomes essential. But the reason being, he first and foremost gets that guaranteed 6 points, 2 for an appearance, 4 for the clean sheet. And there have been teams in the past where you can almost guarantee that they are going to keep clean sheets. Then we add into the mix the attacking returns that Trent historically has had. We add in an assist. We add in the bonus points because we need to remember that Trent's bonus baseline is very, very good. Let me just kind of get it up here. So just to give it some perspective here, based on the bonus points baseline, Trent 62, Robertson 41, and Van Dijk 35. So Trent is much better on the bonus, I can never say it, baseline bonus points. So basically, no, he's not essential, but if Liverpool get their act together and start getting clean sheets, then we're going to see monster hauls for Trent if he continues the creative numbers and also the baseline bonus. So not essential, but if Liverpool do start to pick up, you're going to wish you had Trent, and I would rather pay for him now and just kind of accept that if he doesn't go off, he doesn't go off. But I think if there's more chance of one or the other going off, it's going to be Trent. Hopefully, in that long-winded way, that has answered your question there. And TSS is saying, -4 rare for Ederson, worth it. So this is something that I'm deliberating right now for my personal team. And in isolation this week, I'm probably going to say no. The reason being, I think the best possible scenario for Ederson is 12 points this week. 6 against Fulham, 6 against West Ham, because he won't rack up many save points and he won't rack up bonus points. So let's say a 12-point ceiling for Ederson. Rare at home against Nottingham Forest, one would assume there is a solid chance for a clean sheet there because Nottingham Forest away from home have been the worst in the league from an actual points perspective and a goal scoring perspective. So let's say Raya racks up a 6-pointer on himself. You will return that -4 point hit in this game week in isolation. So happy days. And importantly, you then have Ederson for his great home fixture against Leeds and his double in game week 37. The one thing I would say is Raya has been a monster this season for not only general, but save points and bonus points. We saw that against Chelsea. So if we are going to get a tough game and Brentford do keep a clean sheet, Raya could easily pick up a 9 or 10 points. And then the -4 point hit doesn't look so good. So that's all I'm going to say is that I think it is worth it between now and the end of the season. But in this game week in isolation, I would not be surprised if Raya racked up another 9-point haul in a low-scoring affair, and Ederson maybe picked up 6 points, 8 points, maybe a goal conceded against West Ham, and a clean sheet against Fulham. So if you view it long-term, then I like the move. If you view it in isolation for this week, I don't think it pays off. And Cheeks is putting a really good quote regarding Diogo Jota, so please do check that out, guys. I'm a little bit late on the chat here, so I'm just going to whiz through some of these. I appreciate I've been going for a while, and I haven't covered off a lot, so let's get through these. Tony or Trippier to start this week, incredibly tough. Incredibly tough. I'm probably going to say, oh wow. Probably going to say Trippier, but maybe because I'm scared of the ownership. I think Trippier does have potential for clean sheet, attacking returns, and bonus point potential. But Tony with an amazing fixture. I think you're in a really tough spot. I probably would just go for Trippier. Dida saying Bruno out for Salah for -4. Is it worth it? No, I don't think it's worth it for this game week in isolation. I think I don't even think it's worth it between now and the end of the season. The reason I say that is because Bruno has a double in game week 37. So my question to you would be, is there other avenues to get Mo Salah in your team? If there's not, and you view Mo Salah as essential, then crack on and get done with it, and you accept that what happens with Bruno happens. But I wouldn't be rushing to make that move for a -4. And Mikhail's saying, I want to sell Saka and Martinelli, and you're an Arsenal fan, that must be painful, but I'm going with double game week players. Who do I buy? Grealish, Matoma, or Bowen? So I don't like the West Ham double that much. I wouldn't be going for Bowen. I think Grealish and Matoma are better value picks. It's all about what you do with the rest of your money. I think Matoma is the logical move because he's 2 million cheaper than Grealish, and you get a double in 34, 36, and 37. Grealish, obviously, you're getting an asset in a better attacking team, but I think his minutes could be a little bit risky as well. So because of that, I think Matoma will be number 1, Grealish number 2, and Bowen number 3. All of us saying play Isak this game week at the expense of a double game week. Okay, fair enough. Which Newcastle attacker to own? Isak could be the answer, but I do think there will be rotation between both Isak and Callum Wilson. It is worth noting. Matoma, March, Jota, Isak need to bench one, then you are in trouble. Now, I don't think you can bench Matoma or March or Jota. So I think the answer is going to be Isak, but unfortunately you are in a position where you could be in a lot of trouble. It is worth noting. Because all of them are fantastic options, but I'm always going to be backing the double game weaker, naturally. Sold Saka for Rashford, selling Martinelli for Grealish, Matoma. Okay, I've covered that one. Hopefully that helps. And KDB or Bruno, I can afford both and still have Trent, Trippier, Salah and Haaland. You can afford both. Okay, so the big question here is double for Man City in 34 and 37, and the same applies to Bruno Fernandes. So my question to you would be, what could you do with the additional money if you went for Bruno to the rest of your team? Plan out your team a little bit and think to yourself, if I go for Bruno, I know I'm getting him in every single game. So the bloke is made of vibranium. Honestly, the fact that he was in a boot, everybody ruled him out, and then he rocks up and plays 90 minutes against Spurs is outrageous. So the guy is indestructible. He'll play forever. I'm certain he'll play to the age of 50, and he'll look exactly the same. I'm certain, but he's done some sort of witchcraft, a deal with someone. So I think Bruno is probably my answer here, but I think KDB has the highest ceiling. But I think Bruno is going to play in every game. I think the fixtures are good for Man United, but I think KDB could easily outscore Bruno in one game compared to Bruno's 2. But I think Bruno then just gives you that cash in the bank, maybe to enable other moves in your squad. I imagine if you have Trent, Trippier, Salah, Haaland and KDB, your squad's going to be very thin in other areas. And that's my question to you there. Triple captain Haaland, I probably would, yes. I think this is the time to do it. But of course, there's always potential rotation in the Man City team. But Haaland's minutes has been incredible in this team. I think Pep's rested him at the right times. I think he starts both, maybe 60 in both, but I think that's enough to justify going for the triple captain. Okay, guys, while I'm answering the questions, I think we should get the free hit team for Game Week 34 on your screen so you can check it out, as I know a few of you are on your free hits. So hopefully this does help. Okay, so this is my personal team. We're going to cover this off quickly because we also have to show you the Fantasy Football Fix Algorithm 11, which is effectively a free hit team. And that's going to be really relevant for those in Game Week 34 activating their chips. This is my personal free hit team. So let's quickly go through it. Edison in goal, just because of the double and guaranteed minutes. But it is worth noting, I think De Gea is a good pick if you wanted to go a little bit different in the goalkeeper department. Dalot, Trent and Estupiñán just to capitalise on those double game weeks. And although I don't like necessarily Dalot long term, I think for 1 week punt, I prefer him over a Shaw or a Lindelof. I think he offers the attacking potential and also the bonus points as I've discussed. In the midfield, I think these are quite no-brainers. I think Matoma and March with Salah and Rashford, I don't think you can go against those. I think they are absolutely locked in. And then it comes down to what budget you have available. I've gone for Mahrez. I think with his rest recently, I think it's a really good time for Pep to integrate him back into the side on that right flank. And I would anticipate maybe a start in one and maybe a substitute appearance in the other. And we know with Mahrez, he is one of those that can easily score a hat-trick at home against West Ham. I can just envisage it. And I think based on value, he is the one to go for. I understand if people want to go for Kevin De Bruyne, absolutely no problems with that. But I think the price of Kevin De Bruyne is very hard to justify when you're trying to make other moves in your team. And I think Mahrez offers just as good attacking potential at a much cheaper price. So for that very reason, I think Mahrez would be the one I would go for in the Man City midfield if I was to take a punt. And front two, I'm going for Diogo Jota and Haaland with the captaincy. Now, Diogo Jota is definitely one that could be argued. I think his minutes are going to be okay this double. It sounds like he is fine for the double game week, even though it has been injury concerns. And with this double, I do think there's going to be goals. I anticipate goals in this Tottenham game. I could see a 3-2 either way. Another reason why I want to keep Harry Kane in my team. And Fulham could be anything, depending on which Fulham turn up. I honestly think that could be a cricket score if Fulham rock up and think to themselves, ugh, I just want to be done with this game. Liverpool could go to town. Could Jota get rotated? Absolutely, with Luis Diaz and Darwin Núñez waiting in the wings. But I think it's a good punt if people are looking at it this week. Now, looking at the fixture in isolation, some other players that are at the tip of my tongue that I definitely could be considerations. Robertson, if you want to go for the double Liverpool defence, I have no queries with that whatsoever. Maybe Robertson is the man to go for, and you just go for the two Liverpool defenders and you just jump in on both. So absolutely fine with that. Man City, outside of these ones, yes, you could go Kevin De Bruyne, but I'm just a little bit meh about his minutes and also his value right now. Brighton, I wouldn't go outside of these. I wouldn't go triple Brighton midfield just because of that Man United fixture. I just don't know whether the value is in the midfield or not. Fulham I would avoid. West Ham, you could go Bowen, but I don't think you need to chase it. Single game weeks. Are there any single game weekers that I would consider? Now, of course, if you go for this route, you got no Newcastle, and they obviously have a fantastic home fixture against Southampton. So you are swinging against Trippier and Isak. If you want to go Trippier, be my guest. But I feel like if you free hit in a double game week, you really got to double down on those double game weeks and just hope that they do outscore the ones that single. So that includes the likes of Tony as well at home against Nottingham Forest. So I'm happy with this team, but it's worth noting there's 3 million in the bank. There's a lot of wriggle room if you want to make certain upgrades to the team. For example, you could completely upgrade the defense if you wanted to. As I said, you could change Diogo Jota down to a single game weaker in Alexander Isak or Tony, and then upgrade maybe an Estupinan to a Robertson. I absolutely think that's a solid move as well for your FPL teams. But let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys. I'll be super interested to know what free hit team you would go for in game week 34 if you were to. Let's get back to some of the chat, as I'm conscious we've been going for coming up to an hour, and I really do want to get through as many questions as possible, as this is a Friday stream, and I'm conscious that time is of the essence for a lot of people. So I'm on wildcard 34 on triple Brighton midfield Robbo as third Liverpool asset. Don't mind it at all. I probably think there are too many midfielders available to go for a triple Brighton. I would want a Man United midfielder. I'd probably want a Man City midfielder. I would want a Liverpool midfielder. Therefore, on a process of elimination, triple Brighton just doesn't add up for me. Joe saying start Isak over Trippier. Surely Trippier blanking so much. I can't argue anybody with Isak. The one thing I would say is Trippier is a 90-minute man. Could we see 60 minutes for Isak? 30 minutes for Callum Wilson? Potentially. I just think Trippier is guaranteed minutes in that fixture. Isak is a question mark whether he goes past the 70-minute mark. But of course, if you are in the assumption that he does, Isak is an amazing option. John, taking your advice on wildcard and now have Edison, Pope, Trippier, Shaw, Trent, Estupinan, Lindelof, March, Mitoma, Rashford, De Bruyne, Salah, Haaland, Isak, Greenwood. Thoughts? Yes, absolutely don't mind the team at all. I think it's really solid. You've got Salah. You've gone for the De Bruyne option, which I don't have any arguments with whatsoever. I think it's a good team. Very good team. And Set saying, game week 34, Haaland with triple captain. Yes, I think if you are triple captain, and this is a fantastic week to do so. I have no queries of anybody going for Haaland, and I do expect him to start in both. Will he start in both is the other question, but I would anticipate him to. Darryl saying, Fernandes or Grealish not on a free hit. Again, hopefully I did cover that off for you if you were on the stream. I personally think that I probably would go for Fernandes now, just because I know that he's going to play every minute of every game. He looked really good in that fixture against Spurs. Now, just to give you a bit of context, because I kind of am saying that with no real underlying numbers to back it up. So I want to kind of give you some underlying numbers for Fernandes in that fixture, just to get a bit of an idea, because Fernandes, with the absence of Casemiro and Eriksen, is a very difficult asset to kind of evaluate over the past few game weeks. But we got to see the best of him against Spurs in what I would argue was a tough game away against Spurs. So in that fixture, Fernandes playing in his usual role of number 10, which we haven't seen for a long time now. In that game against Spurs, he had 4 shots, 1 on target. He had an XG of 0.79, and he had an expected assist of 0.97, expected FPL points of 8.94. And in terms of creativity, he created 2 big chances. So I think when Fernandes is in this position, in this form, I really think he is an amazing option at 9.4 million. And with Eriksen and Casemiro back in the team, it gives him the license to be able to free up and get into the final third and be that link up between the midfield and the attack. And for that very reason, I do think I'd prefer Bruno Fernandes over Jack Grealish. I just think he plays every minute, and minutes now are essential between now and the end of the season, because you could get a situation where you have Fernandes for 5 and Grealish for 3. Not saying that's going to happen. And that will justify the pick over Fernandes, over Grealish every day of the week. Oliver saying Lindelof in for sure means I can get Ederson. Good move. Yes, I don't mind it. If there are Man United fans out there that do think the Lindelof minutes could be rotated, then please do let me know. I'm going off the assumption that Maguire is completely out of that starting 11 for Ten Hag. And while the news of Martinez and Varane look like he could be out long term, Lindelof for me is a shoe-in at centre-back. But of course, if there is some deliberation about that, please do let me know, as I don't want to be saying false information. Sammy, I'm saying who to start, Henry versus Watkins versus Botman. I think I wouldn't go for Henry personally. I probably would favour... really difficult actually. I was going to say Botman, but I think Henry offers the attacker potential and also clean sheet this week. So I'd probably rank those as probably Henry 1, Watkins 2, Botman 3. But very difficult to kind of judge. Based on predicted points, it is worth noting, because I know a lot of people do like to base their decision making on the projected points on Fantasy Football Fix. So I'll quickly get those up for you now, just so you have that as a little bit of a second opinion, as I do think that is worth noting. So for this game week, Henry is predicted to score 4.7 points, Watkins 4.1, and your other one was, I forget, Botman. Botman is predicted to score 4.2, so that doesn't really help. Look, Watkins has 1 fixture, Botman has 2, Henry has 2. I think from a process of elimination, that takes Watkins out of the equation. I would probably go for Botman in the double. No, one more right. They didn't have a double. Sorry, I'm looking at the fixture in the future. I would go for Henry just, personally. I would just go for Henry and anticipate a Brentford clean sheet and potential attacking returns. Just making sure I'm not missing any questions, guys. Who do I bench? Tonio Konate's Liverpool. I would bench Konate 100%. Probably Konate, because I don't know about his minutes. But if he is guaranteed fit, then it could be a deliberation there. But I'd probably play Tony. Charlie, I already remember transfers. Do I now do Saka to Salah, Watkins to Greenwood from -8? Saka to Bruno, Watkins to Jota from -8, or just Saka to Bruno? Saka to Bruno from -4 would be the route I'd recommend, personally. That's the one I would go for. Cal saying Ederson March for Raya Grealish, or just play Raya as only game week thing. So I like the Ederson March move for Raya and Grealish, but what I would say to you is Raya is more than capable of racking up a 9-point haul. So maybe view it, if you are going to do that move, that will pay dividends over 5 game weeks rather than this game week in isolation. Thoughts on Antonio? No, I couldn't go there myself. Yes, if you want to go for a punt, but no, I can't see it myself. Right, guys, I'm conscious of the time, so let's get up the algorithm 11. This is based on Fantasy Football Fix predicted points. That has made a starting 11 and bench. So slightly different to my team. We have got De Gea in goal, a back four of Trent, Robertson, Estupinan and John Stones, a midfield five of March, Grealish, Salah, Rashford and Matoma, and Haaland up front on his own with, of course, the captaincy. Bench of Leno, Shaw, Solanke and Edouard. So slightly different to my team that I went for, but I can't knock the Fantasy Football Fix predicted points at all. And I think this is a fantastic team as well. No questions asked with that. This team is predicted to score 118 points as well. It's worth noting, I really do like the Robertson and Trent combination at the back. But the one thing I will say is Liverpool clean sheets very difficult to predict. So, of course, that is one thing that is worth noting. But John Stones, I think his minutes are going to be good. I don't think anyone else can play that inverted role. If Pep was looking to deploy that right now, midfield five is very basically the same as what I went for. So I can't argue that team. So, going to leave that up on the screen, guys, where I cover quickly some more questions before we wrap up this live stream. Again, if you can drop a like, it is free to do. We've got 36 likes right now. We always try and hit 50 likes. You guys always deliver. So if you haven't hit that like button, please do consider hitting it. It's free and it'd be awesome just to show your appreciation if it is providing value. If it isn't, don't hit that like button, as I understand it is not worth it. So let's crack on with some more of the questions. Popey, free hit on Steele, Trent, Dallo, Akanji, March, Matoma, Salah, KDB, Rashford, Jota, Haaland, or Edison, Trent, Robbo, Dallo, Estupinan, March, Matoma, Salah, Grealish, Rashford, Haaland. So basically you're going for one up front in that free hit team. But you got no Kevin De Bruyne. I'll probably go for the second one, personally, Popey. I would go for the second one myself. Paul, Kane and Saka out for Salah and Jota. Kane and Saka out for Salah and Jota, or Kane, Saka, Grealish out for Greenwood, Salah and KDB. So I actually think Jota and KDB are both minutes risks this week, even though I'm not saying they're going to be out. I'm just thinking they could be a rotation risk. So for me, I probably would say Kane and Saka out for Salah and Jota, or Kane, Saka, Grealish. I couldn't be selling Grealish right now to do a sideways move to KDB, so I would go for the first option personally. Mads is saying Ake, Murphy and Kane out, Trent, Rashford and Isak in for a -4. Then I have 9 double game week players. Not sure to take another for a -4 for a keeper. Well, fair play for having Murphy. If you've been capitalising on those points, fair play. The players that you're bringing in, I love. So for that very reason, I'm more than happy for you to make those moves. I think they're solid. Ake out injured. Murphy no double until 36. Kane away against Liverpool. The players that you're bringing in all have doubles or are in good form. So yes, I do like the first move that you're saying. And is Fernandes better alternative over KDB? I personally would go for Fernandes over KDB myself. I'm really bullish on Fernandes now playing in that further forward position with the return of Casemiro and Eriksen. But how can anyone knock anybody going for De Bruyne? He has been in unbelievable form the last few weeks and it feels like he really is stepping up. But the one thing I would say is they have Champions League and FA Cup to contend with. Could we see a slight rotation or management in minutes for KDB once we get close to that Champions League game against Real Madrid? Super Tiger, hi, just joined. Start Trippier or Isak. So this has been a big deliberation for a lot of people out there. And the first thing I want to say to you is expect pain for whichever one you do go for, because the other will likely go big. So firstly, who is predicted to score more on our projected points? Isak is projected to score 3.6. Trippier 5.6. But I would say there probably is a slight decline in the expected minutes for Isak on our projected points. So that will take into consideration his returns. So look, this is the way I view it right now. Trippier is 84% owned in live teams. Isak, on the other hand, is currently owned by 19% in live teams. So, realistically, Trippier is the obvious coverage option. I think he has a really high ceiling because I would anticipate a clean sheet. And then attack and returns on top of the inevitable bonus, we could see a 12-pointer. Isak, on the other hand, benched against Everton, on form, looking solid. I can't knock anyone going for Isak. His returns have been solid. I'm still going to fancy Trippier though. But how can anybody argue someone go for Isak? So it's all about what your gut is telling you. I personally would go for Trippier, but Isak could go off. There's no denying that whatsoever. I think you can make an argument for both. And guys, before we wrap up this live stream, I want to get the predicted points on screen, as I have been obviously talking for a while and I have still got one more slide to show you. So let me get this on your screen to you right now. Take a mental note or a screenshot. This is the algorithm 11, what we deem to be one of the best free hit teams for game week 34 if you were using the chip. So as always, I'm just going to leave this on your screen, on screens for you. There's not much to talk about with the predicted points. Everything you can see on your screens kind of speaks for itself. The numbers in green are their projected points. Of course, the player and then the price of that player. We've got the top 5 for each position. The one thing I will say is we input this information in the morning, and we have seen Ferguson be ruled out for game week 30. For game week 34. So let me just give you an update on the forward department for game week 34. As Ferguson, I would question his game time now. So based on our projected points, we have Haaland as number 1, Jota at number 2, Tony 3, Jesus is now the 4th highest at 5.5, and Antonio has come out of nowhere at 5.2 projected points. Other notable ones, Darwin at 5, Solanke at 4.7, Kane at 4.3, Watkins at 4.1. So basically it means Jesus has gone up 1 and Antonio has replaced him, which seems ridiculous, but we do not argue the projected points. Right, let's answer some more questions before we wrap up this live stream. And really appreciate it, guys. You got us to 46 likes, which I really do appreciate. If we can get those 4 more, that is always the goal. I will really appreciate it and love you guys forever. So, PhotoFlex Media is saying, I've decided to go with 3 City midfielders. No Haaland. Don't ask why. Which 3 would you pick? Okay, so I can't advise going without Haaland because I just can't advise it. So hypothetically, if I was picking 3 midfielders, which 3 would I pick? I think they kind of pick themselves. It would be Grealish, Mahrez, and KDB. Alvarez, of course, is a forward on the game. So for me, if you're going for the Man City midfield 3, which I wouldn't advise, I would advise putting Haaland in there. It would be Kevin De Bruyne, Mahrez, and Grealish as the 3. Nick, is Jota likely to start? Fortunately, I don't know, but what I would say is the press conference, although it sounded like he has a knock, it doesn't sound like he's ruled out. So I don't think you should be put off from buying him. But what I would say to you is expect rotation even if he wasn't carrying a knock, because we need to remember Luis Diaz and Darwin Núñez are waiting in the wings and they will take game time away from Jota. That is just inevitable. JP, yes, mate, we need you up top at Chelsea FC. I honestly think I could do a better job than the boys up there. It's getting ridiculous right now. Thank you, though. Already -4 for Chilwell, Watkins to Trent and Jota. Like the moves. Is Mac 10 rare to March to Hare worth it for an additional -8? I think the question is, can you simply just do rare to De Gea if you want to go down that route? I don't think you need to do sideways from McAllister to March. I understand why, but I expect McAllister to return to the 10 position with the return of Veltman. So I don't think you need to do McAllister to March at all. You can save yourself the point sit there. Tuesday and Alvarez in for a -12 worth a punt. When we come to punts, Alvarez is one of the best around. His underlying numbers have always been fantastic. It's just guessing the minutes. That's the big thing. I expect him to probably play around 90 to 100 minutes. I think he could easily start one of the games and he might get a 20-minute cameo in the other one. So if you want to go for a punt, Alvarez is probably up there. You need to remember, if you're buying him, you're having him beyond the game week 34. Could that cause problems for your team? JP, do you think Brighton players are gassing out with all these upcoming fixtures? Yes, I do think that. Their game time has been very, very consistent, which means that the same players are playing every week. And I do anticipate them to be at lower levels than what we have seen. Could they still return in each of the fixtures? Absolutely, because I think they have great fixtures. But yes, I do think that we are going to see a slight underperformance from Brighton from a numbers and attacking numbers, just naturally because of the minutes that they are playing and the lack of rotation in some of the key players in that team. Iceman saying Steele, Trent, Shaw, Trippier, Grealish, Rashford, Matoma. is it a good idea keeping Kane? I think Kane is one of those players that is going to get mass sold this week and is going to do very well against Liverpool, because I think Spurs under Ryan Mason, I get a good feeling about Ryan Mason that he is going to have a really strong finish to the end of the season. The players are going to play for him 100%, and I think we are going to see a good version of Spurs between now and the end of the season. I expect both teams to score in that game against Liverpool. I expect a high-scoring game. The lack of creativity in Spurs is the only thing I would say. Could we see Kane being deployed a bit further deeper in order to help Spurs tick? And could Son be the differential in that team? I think that's one worth monitoring. I think selling Kane is always a risk, but we need to remember we're doing it to capitalise on the doubles. And for that very reason, I'm in a position where I'm happy to sell Kane, even though I do think he is the best differential between now and the end of the season. And he will become a differential because everyone's selling him. He's only good to sell if you are then bringing in a double game week player. If you're not, keep Kane. And I honestly think he is one of the best around for a differential. Kinga, start Shaw, Isak. I always have to back the doubler, so I'm going to have to say Shaw, but Isak could outscore him in 1 week, absolutely. I've decided to go with 3 City mids, no Haaland, don't ask why. Okay, I've covered that one. Free hit, I see. Yep, I've covered that one. Right, guys. We're going to wrap up this live stream. We go for about an hour 10, one of the longest we've done in a while, but I really do hope that it has provided some value to you all out there. Just to wrap up the captaincy poll, 140 votes, 82% go for Haaland, 14 for Salah, 4% for Rashford. So just to give you a bit of context, if you are going for Mo Salah, he is a fantastic differential, but just know if he doesn't do well and Haaland does well, it could be horrendous for the rank. So just be cautious of that. But if you're willing to take the risk, I think it's a brilliant differential this week. So guys, that just leaves me to say thank you so much for tuning into this live stream. We got to 48 likes, nearly at the 50 likes. If you are one of those that hasn't hit the like button, could you be one of those to get us to the 50? That would be massively appreciated, but absolutely no worries if not. Cheeks saying Kane isn't included in the above predicted points for forwards. He isn't. He is predicted to score 4.3, but I do think Kane is worth noting. John saying, cheers, Nacho, my head is spinning. Mine too is worth noting. I never help myself in these live streams. I just get more and more confused during them, but hopefully it has provided some value at least. And as always, if you do have any questions and they haven't been answered, drop me a DM over on Twitter, FPL Nacho. The handle is below here. I'll try and help you out, or just tag me in a post and I will try and help you out between now and the deadline. But thanks again so much. Cheekster, thank you so much again for moderating the chat. Always appreciate it, my friend. And I will see you guys in the Game Week 35 live stream, where hopefully we have all had some big green arrows. Talk soon, guys. Take care and have a great game week. Cheers.